Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. In this video, we are looking at the MLB slate for Sunday, a 9-game slate today, starting at 1 o'clock, as usual. First and foremost, I want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July. I hope you guys all have some good plans for this afternoon and this evening. Hope you guys all stay safe, and hope you guys also can win some money on this baseball slate. So let's get started. As always, appreciate if you guys hit the like button, subscribe as well if you haven't already, it means a lot. Looking at this slate, we have a bunch of good pitching options today. We also have a couple of teams in some really good spots. First thing to note is the Yankees game is 7 innings, so Garrett Cole, the max innings you're going to get out of him is 7, possibly 6 if they're in a save situation and they go to Chapman instead in the 7th. So that's why the Mets have a very low total. Also, the Yankees have a pretty low total as well. Besides that game, some teams that look appealing in terms of pitching, we have Freddie Peralta. Looks awesome today. He's probably one of my favorites going up against Tyler Anderson. His Pirates offense in Pittsburgh, so he gets a nice ballpark upgrade. The Pittsburgh offense is really, really bad all season. They struggle to score runs. They strike out a good amount. I expect Peralta, even though there are some lefties in this lineup, just to be able to cruise. He gets to face a pitcher, as usual, as well, playing in the National League. You can go Lucas Giolito. He's facing off against the Tigers. He's been a bit up and down at times this year. If you look at his stuff, he hasn't been as dominant as he was last year, but he's still been very solid. 3.84 ERA. The strikeouts aren't as high as they were last year, but they're still well over a K per inning. And then you also have a guy that's been making quite a bit of a resurgence this year is Robbie Ray, who's been really dominant in terms of the strikeouts. Also, not walking a ton of guys, and he's been able to put up north of 20 most of the time for his fantasy scores. So he's also in play, playing. He just gets a tough ballpark at home in Toronto, even though they're playing in some other ballpark this year. So looking at the pitching-wise options today, we have Cole, who's going only in a 7-inning game. We have Peralta, who looks awesome. I'm going to go ahead and plug him in. My second would be Giolito. Third would be Robbie Ray. And then for the SP2 option, if you don't want to go with too expensive pitchers here, if you don't want to go Peralta and Giolito, I think you could make a case to go with one of these cheap guys here. You have Kenta Maeda at only $6,200. He's been struggling this year at times, but he also can go out and put up like 15, 20. Sometimes he can get over 20. So he is appealing just for the fact that he's still a good, decent strikeout pitcher, averaging just about a strikeout per inning. He's just been struggling this year in terms of not being able to go super deep into games. We've seen him just go 4 or 5 innings a lot, be limited to just like 70-something pitches, sometimes 80 pitches. So that's the reason why you could also look to Zach Thompson instead, the pitcher for the Marlins, who coming off of his best start of the season. That's only his 4th start, but he had 11 strikeouts against the Nats. He's been really good with the strikeouts. He is one of their better prospects, and I think this Braves team is very scary. But he's only $6,400, a guy that can maybe rack up like 8 to 9, maybe 10 strikeouts if he has another one of those games that he did last time out. His pitch count steadily rising every single game. We could see him get close to 100 pitches here. So for my SP2, I think I'm kind of between Thompson and Maeda. I feel like Maeda might still get some more ownership just for the name and the fact that he's facing the Royals, whereas Thompson is facing the Braves. I don't think you can really go wrong with either one. I think both are pretty similar, but Thompson, just based on his strikeout stuff, I think he might give you a little bit more upside and maybe has a bit of a longer leash than Maeda. So those are the two pitchers, that I'm looking at least. For the bats here, the White Sox stand out as the top stack of the slate. They are facing off against Matt Manning, who has been really bad. I don't think he'll last more than a couple innings here in this start. He's coming off of his worst start of the 3. Before that, he was okay against the Cardinals, but he still gave up a home run in that start. He was decent against the Angels, but the strikeouts are just non-existent for him. Only 6 strikeouts in 14 innings. Anytime you have that low of a strikeout stuff, you better hope that you're getting a lot of ground balls. And he does get a decent amount of ground balls, but he also gets a bunch of fly balls. The ball is going to be put in play. It's a good ballpark to do some damage. In Detroit, still somewhat pitcher-friendly, but compared to some of the other bigger ballparks, it's definitely still one that you can hit in, especially with the weather being very nice today, 88 degrees, some wind blowing out. The White Sox are my favorite stack of the board. The second stack to kind of consider, for me at least, is going to be the Twins going up against Brad Keller. I like the sprinkling in a couple Reds here. And then I don't think I'll have too much Blue Jays, just because I do like Yarborough a little bit. But they're always a team to stack if you make a bunch of teams. But I'd like the White Sox the most. I like the Twins, a couple of the Reds here, just like some one-off plays like Castellanos, just because he's been awesome all season. Then you can throw in a couple of Astros just because they're super affordable looking at their lineup. With all the injuries they're dealing with, you have like McCormick, $2,400. You have Toro, $3,300. It's very, very cheap hitters facing off against Cal Quantrill, who is definitely not going to strike a lot of fear in anybody's offense. So Peralta, Thompson, the two pitchers I'm starting with at first base. It's a guy that has been pretty quiet this year, but the matchup is just really, really nice. It is a righty-righty matchup. We know Abreu's a lot better against lefties, but I just like the way Abreu's been hitting the ball recently. A couple of multi-hit games for him recently. Looking at his stats here, 13 bombs on the season. He does have a ton of RBIs. Just been not doing a ton of damage with the home runs. The batting average is also a lot lower than it was last year, but I just love the White Sox offense today. I expect them to score a bunch of runs, and I wouldn't be surprised if Abreu has multiple RBIs, maybe hits one out today. So $5,200, I would go ahead and plug him in, especially with, Vlad is also in play, but Freeman, I don't want to play him against my pitcher. We have like Rizzo, lefty, Rhys Hoskins going up against Snell. Not a ton of good options there, so I think Abreu is definitely the best option. And I don't want to play Alonso, don't want to play Voit in their tough matchups. Moving on to third base, I've been playing Toro quite a bit, and it's been working out most times just because he's super cheap. And he's been a very good hitter for the Astros, filling in for Bregman. He doesn't do too much, but he has power to hit it out of the park. He also just doesn't strike out very often, only 10 Ks and 60 at-bats, so striking out very, very few times on the season. He hits like 7th or 6th in the lineup, depending on the status of Brantley. That will change some things up, but he gives you upside at third base, a position where, if you look at it today's slate at least, a lot of guys are unlikely to play. Donaldson day-to-day, Ramirez day-to-day, Moncada not expected to play this series, so you're basically looking at Luis Urias at lefty going up against Anderson. I don't want to pay $53 for him. You have Machado, who is in play, but Velasquez, righty. I like targeting Machado against lefties, and then the rest, nothing really looks too good except for like Suarez at 4,000. Maybe you can throw in a LeMahieu, but only 7 innings in that game, so I don't want to get too many hitters from there at all. So I think Toro kind of makes some sense. At shortstop, my favorite is Tim Anderson, $5,100. Then I would look to like Tatis, maybe throw in Carlos Correa here. For value at the position, I don't think I need to go super cheap here because this is a spot where I want to pay up. So I'm kind of looking at the top end guys. But you do have Lindor. If you wanted to get sneaky in tournaments, Cole, don't want to target guys against Cole, but at only 4,000 for Lindor, you could maybe take a shot with him. And then in the outfield, you got plenty of options here. One of my favorites is going to be Castellanos going up against Hendricks. Castellanos has been an absolute monster at home this year. He's also been very, very good against the Cubs. .395 average at home. 14 of his 16 home runs have come in Cincinnati. And he's facing off against Hendricks, who is kind of a fly ball pitcher. Doesn't really strike a lot of guys out here. So Castellanos been red hot recently. Been red hot basically all season. But 3 home runs in his last 10. .342 average. And I do like the Reds to get a couple of runs here. Maybe get a couple of home runs. So I got to go Castellanos as my favorite Cincinnati player to target. And then you got a bunch of other good options here. Looking at the Astros team, you possibly have McCormick, $2,400, batting first or second. You have Miles Straw in there, also a good value play. Then you have a bunch of good options on the White Sox here. You have Brian Goodwin, $3,400. He's been awesome for them recently. You still have Gavin Sheets at only 27, who's been awesome since he's made his debut a few days ago. But Goodwin, also probably about like second in the lineup for them. He's been really, really good recently. He has been hitting the ball hard, a bunch of extra base hits. Gives you a little bit of speed. Hasn't really taken off at all this year, but we've seen him in the past steal some bases. Also been limited playing time for him, only 56 at-bats, so that might come. I know he's missed some time with injuries, so that might be why he's not really looking to steal on the base paths, but $3,400 for a guy that should be batting like second or third in the lineup against a righty, and not a very good righty in that matter. I think Goodwin will be able to make some damage, do some damage, maybe get a couple of hits, a couple of RBIs. At $3,400, he's going to be one of my favorites. Him and Gavin Sheets are just too cheap. So that's it for the DraftKings side. Let's talk about FanDuel. All right, for FanDuel, kind of have the plays already on the screen, but Looking at the pitching options, you have Peralta. They don't even have the Yankees pitchers on here, so you can't look to Garrett Cole on FanDuel. You're basically picking between a 10-8 Robbie Ray or a 99 Peralta. I would take Peralta all day, just based on the matchup here. Also like Giolito a little bit, but only $300 cheaper than Peralta. I'd just take Peralta. And Thompson is 92, so they priced him up on FanDuel, so I would rather look to him on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I'd look to getting to Peralta for $700 more. Maybe you can look to Blake Snell if he's going to start. So he's only 81 if you wanted to look to him. He's definitely not the worst thing in the world. But for the bats, it's kind of the same deal. Gavin Sheets, he's a little bit more expensive on FanDuel, but I still like to get to him at $3,200. He's just been very good. Gives you power. And the White Sox are my favorite stack of the slate, so I'm looking to get at least 3 or 4 of them in my lineup. Toro, batting like 6th or 7th for them at only $2,500 at third base, which has a lot of guys that might not be in the lineup today. A lot of big names like Ramirez, Donaldson. Moncada's missed some times. They're still without Bregman, so not a ton of good options to pick from. So Toro definitely makes some sense in his plus matchup. And then the outfield, Brian Goodwin and Castellanos. Just like Castellanos, whenever he's at home against a pitcher that will probably pitch to contact, and Castellanos has been able to do so much damage this year. He's one of my favorites to spend up on. And then Brian Goodwin in the 3K range is just very cheap for a guy that has been very good for the White Sox whenever he's been in the lineup. He's missed a lot of time with injuries, but he's been awesome for them whenever he's been healthy and able to play and been able to do some damage. 31 for him. Definitely like that price tag. Looking at the prices in that range, like he looks way better than Baddoo, looks way better than Gurriel. Then I'm not really looking to too much of the Indians offense today, so I'm kind of passing on those guys. Maybe you can look to some of these Brewers also on FanDuel. They're a little bit better priced in the outfield. You can look to like Avi Garcia at only $3,000. But overall, I feel very good about focusing on the White Sox today, focusing on a couple of the Astros, some Reds. Those are my 3 favorites to look at. And with that being said, that's about it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Best of luck today, and I'll catch you all next time.